The CFL Gambling Podcast 2024 season championship futures episode on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Best Ball Mania is live with $15 million in prizes up for grabs. Sign up with the promo code TCE SGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. That's underdogfantasy.com promo code TCE SGPN. And remember, as always, folks, too, let it ride.
Hey, what's up, you degenerate gamblers? This is Bill Burr, and you're listening to SGPN. Let it ride, baby.
Welcome to the CFL Gambling Podcast. Yes. Welcome to the first edition of the CFL Gambling Podcast Rebirth. All right. This is like we had this feed doing the CFL before. Things didn't work out for one reason or another. And now here we are talking CFL. This is like when The Wire or Family Guy got canceled and then came back. You know what I mean? And we come back strong. We love the Canadian Football League, folks. Remember, you can check us out on YouTube. Hop on over there. YouTube.com/@CFL Gambling Pod, I believe it is. I'll double check that. But anyway, you can also give us a follow on Twitter at CFL Gambling Pod. So subscribe, tell a friend. If you're wondering who the hell you're listening to, that is fair. My name is Colby Swinging Database Dad, aka Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
And you're nothing but a chameleon, lemon-headed, coward, tailless pussy. And I'm after you, buddy. You're going to pay for it. Good night.
God damn it, I love the Canadian Football League. They've been playing the Grey Cup since 1909. All right? Way ahead of the Super Bowl. Don't forget that. Don't forget that, folks. Look, honestly, I've been a long-time CFL fan. Canada has given us so many gems. Rest in peace to the great Norm Macdonald. I mean, we can just go on and on. John Candy, rest in peace to the great John Candy, who owned the Toronto Argonauts. Canada, Mike Myers. Jim Carrey. You go on and on. Dan Aykroyd. And great football. They gave me the Baltimore Stallions when I was a kid, and that was a big thing. And maybe the greatest gift of all, well, in the 90s, I don't know about now, was Pamela Anderson was discovered at a CFL game. All right. CFL gave us the BC Lions, I think, if memory serves me correct. I wasn't there, but I heard stories. I am joined by my co-host. This guy is the host of the Old Fashioned Football Podcast. He also joins me on the UFL Gambling Podcast that we do. He knows football through and through. Used to be with the NFL Gambling Podcast. Give it up for Justin Mark, aka J Mark. How you doing, brother?
Doing great. If nobody's heard me before, big into whiskey. That's part of Old Fashioned Football. I don't have a lot of Canadian whiskey, but I did have some Pendleton Canadian whiskey. Went downstairs, grabbed some of that to enjoy during our first CFL Gambling Podcast, or the rebirth of.
Yes, episode 41. We had 40 episodes before. Shout out to Rod Villagomez, who's our boy too. Maybe we can even welcome him onto an episode to talk ball, because I know he loves CFL action. But last season we didn't have it. I wanted to revive this last season, but I just had a crazy schedule. And this year, recording more from home. My wife just had a baby, or we just had a baby. So I think it was us. I'm at home more. I got more time to record. So I was like, I'm doing the fucking CFL this year. I've loved this league since I was a kid. I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area. And, growing up, me and my brothers were just football junkies. So we would get our eyes on like old school games before, like I'd say late 80s, early 90s. We were watching the CFL whenever we could. Now it was a hard thing to get back in the day. But we ended up, as the years went on, once Doug Flutie really flourished in the Canadian Football League, and obviously Rocket Ishmael and everything went to the Argos. We were those games went to like ESPN2, so we were all over it. Like me and my brothers, everything. Hey, let's go watch these CFL games, and we really learned to enjoy the league. And a lot. It's been a cutting edge league. I would argue some of the things over the years have been ahead of the NFL. And and obviously Baltimore got a team for a few years in the 90s, and Tracy Ham won a championship, and that was they played at Memorial Stadium, which the Baltimore Orioles played at. I would go to all the time. I went to Cal Ripken's baseball camp, so it was right there. I had a Baltimore Stallions cup as a kid that I got from a 7-Eleven around, and I would keep that on my desk. I wish I wonder if it's still out there in the universe. Anyone got a Baltimore Stallion cup? I'll buy it off you because I need that thing back in my life. But it was like a big gulp cup. But that team was to me, they grabbed a lot of old Redskins. They had Dexter Manley and Alvin Walton, and Tracy Ham was an unbelievable quarterback. So Robert Clark, and that made me a fan. But I know after a couple of years they went away because the Ravens came. But ever since before that, I loved the league. But the Stallions definitely made me a bigger fan. And then I just kept following the league, and now I had the opportunity. I've been working for SGPN, doing stand up for a long time and shit. And it just kind of fell on my lap, and I'm like, I'm doing the show. So how did you become a fan of the Canadian Football League, J Mark?
Yeah. So not as, probably not as long of a Canadian fan as you. Always knew about the league. Never like you said, it was kind of hard to catch the game. So I never really got into it until really when the USFL started revamping. I was like, I want more eyes on football. So that was part of it. Really prepping for that, looking into guys and that were on those teams, and like, oh, this guy played in the CFL. I need to watch more of that. And then I was kind of following it a little bit before that as well, because there was this running back out of the Iowa Hawkeyes, James Butler, who I was a big fan of. I live in Iowa, big fan of James Butler. And after he went to Iowa, kind of fizzled out of his little NFL tries, I was really interested, like, man, this guy still deserves an opportunity. Where is he? And found out, oh, he's in the CFL. So then that also helped me really start diving into it and wanting to get eyes on more games. Hamilton was the team I started with of rooting for. It kind of went with the Iowa Hawkeye colors, the black and yellow, black and gold of that. And so I started rooting for the Ticats. Has not been very good as far as winning any Grey Cups. They've been in a couple since I've been watching.
They had my guy June Jones, who I've interviewed and I've known for years, and Jerry Glanville at one point. And man, I really feel like had he not got the XFL offer, they would have won a championship, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I agree. So that's kind of where it all started. Rod Villagomez, he was hosting also it was the Ottawa Wood Cookie Cast, I believe. So he was talking to me about it a lot, and I was just like, I love football. I need to dive into this big time. And the past 2 years, I've followed it very closely.
Yeah. Now I know they had the games on ESPN Plus for a while, and I do think like that was the best thing for it. But at the same time, I know they went off that. If you got a hack TV, I know CBS, I think CBS Sports covers some, but luckily I got to hook you up with this.
Last year, you could watch it on CFL's website. You just needed an email and password. It was free. Do you know if they're going to continue to do that?
I didn't know because I had the TV. I have I have basically we call it God's Eye. Follow them on Twitter, God's Eye SGPN. But I pretty much get any station in the world. All right, you want a game of badminton going on in New Delhi? I got you covered. Shout out to the chat, bro. Average in there saying yes, let's go. Dean's the man. He says never been to a CFL game, but BC is 3 hours away. Would you recommend you go? Yes, actually, the Grey Cup is being held in British Columbia, I believe, this season, and I would recommend it. Now, you got to pick and choose your spots. One of the like, if I had to recommend to me, I think Winnipeg would be my first. Something about the crowd at Winnipeg that I think would be the one to go to. And it turns out we were just talking right before we went to hit record. Now that's the closest to you, J Mark.
Yeah.
So dude, go up there, go up there, man. Go see a game up there. Manitoba.
Gonna try to work in a game this year. Might end up being Toronto. If anybody doesn't know, big Brian Scott fan, got his jersey back there. We'll see if he draws the start. He's going to be competing for it with Chad Kelly suspended. But yeah, I definitely want to try to make a game. And I love the fact that you don't have to spend half your freaking paycheck like an NFL game. They're very reasonably priced so that people like me can make a trip and afford a game ticket.
The way it should be.
Agreed.
I have a ticket stub to a Washington Redskins playoff game in 1991 or 92, I think it was actually the year after the Super Bowl. So they had won the Super Bowl. So you would think the fans would be as big, the ticket would be as hard to get as ever for $19. What happened to that? What happened to that? All right. You could take the subway and didn't have to pay for parking. No, corporate America came in and ripped it, got its hands on it. All right. And we went from, in my opinion, the NFL was like, the Rolling Stones or the Beatles, and now it's Creed. All right. It's Creed. You know what I mean? So, you just gotta
can't pay Jared Goff $172 million guaranteed.
Unfucking believable. Unbelievable. There's robberies going on right before our eyes, people. Kirk Cousins. I'm sorry. There's better quarterbacks in the CFL. They just haven't been given the opportunity. I'm just going to say that. But look, we're going to talk about it. We're going to go through our futures. Might even hit you with that. A theme of the show is going to be the Pam Anderson huge tits parlay. So get ready. We might be able to do that with a little, I'll give out 2 sprinkles on the odds of the episode. Because some people do stand in the darkness when it comes to betting futures. They don't know what they're doing. Don't worry. Pick Dundee will lead the way. We got you covered, folks. But first, I want to tell you that you are listening to the CFL Gambling Podcast. And look, if you're looking for more ways to get paid watching hoops, check out the WNBA Gambling Podcast. It's back this week. Plus, did you know that every single podcast SGPN releases all in one place? Just smash that SGPN network feed wherever you listen to a podcast, because you're going to get every single one of our episodes. We host the UFL Gambling Podcast, the Old Fashioned Football Podcast. I host the College Football Experience Podcast, the FCS College Football Experience Podcast, the Stadium Heads Podcast. Go check out all of those. The Sports Gambling Podcast episodes will even be on there as well. So check it all out. We got you covered. And obviously, if you want to make a little extra money, there's great edges to be found in the WNBA. So go check it out. Terrell Fairman always does great work with them. We're also brought to you by NYRA Bets. Yes, bet the second jewel of the Triple Crown with NYRA Bets. Sign up today for a $200 deposit bonus with the promo code SGPN200. Join now to claim your $200 deposit bonus just in time for the Preakness at nyrabets.com/SGPN200. Yes. Get ready for nonstop action with NYRA Bets evening promotions. Bet $50 each on Belmont at the Big A and any track with a first post at 6 p.m. Eastern on Friday for a $10 bonus, win or lose. You need more? They earn a $15 bonus, win or lose, when you bet at least $75 each on Belmont at the Big A at the Big A and Monmouth Park. Visit nyrabets.com to opt in. And that's not all. Score big with a 20% off bonus on your ticket winnings by hitting an exacta on any or all races at Belmont at the Big A on Sunday. What are you doing, folks? Remember, registration closes before the Belmont at the Big A third race post time on the day of each race. So get in, get your bonuses, nyrabets.com/SGPN200. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Look, the NBA playoffs are here, and our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, wants to make it a lot more interesting for you. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. Playing their pick'em game is as simple as selecting higher or lower on player stats like rebounds, points, assists, and much, much more. And you can make all entries of basketball. Maybe you just want to play all NBA players, right? Or you can mix and match across your favorite sports, which I think is great. If you want to jump in on some spring football action, you load up with the quarterback here, running back there, NHL playoffs going on. Maybe you think this guy's got an edge. MLB, you can win up to 100 times the amount of money you enter, and it's a ton of fun. And Underdog's available in 30 plus states, including California and Texas, as well as the great country of Canada. So what are you doing, folks? Hop on over there and check out Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. All right, we are back on the CFL Gambling Podcast. And, looking back at a season ago, I was shocked that it went the way it went, if that makes sense. You had, I don't know about you, but I did not have a future on the Montreal Alouettes as they upset the Winnipeg Blue Bombers at Tim Hortons Field there. That was one of the more remarkable stories. I know they didn't play the COVID season, but the year prior, the Argos won 2022. They did. The 2 years before that, it was the Blue Bombers. Year before that, I believe, was Calgary. And the year before that was Toronto. And I kind of felt like all those teams were pretty darn good teams. Montreal kind of came out of nowhere last year and had this magical run. What did you make of that, essential, like that run and then winning the Grey Cup?
I'm going to call it all luck. I mean, their defense played really well. Don't get me wrong. And the Toronto kind of fell apart in the playoffs there. I felt like Chad Kelly had 3 interceptions. So I thought it should have been Winnipeg and Toronto. I thought that's what it was going to come down to, but and we'll kind of get to this when we talk to Montreal, but Cody Fajardo, sometimes when he's on the field, he looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Other times it's like, how is this guy a quarterback in the league? And he just happened to go on this streak where they were winning games with him. And they pulled that upset off. It was a close game, 28-24. But yeah, I was definitely surprised. I did not have a future on them either.
They were 6-7 after the weekend of September 16th. They were 6-7. They won their remaining, 4 games, or 3. 4 games. They even scored the bye, and then they beat Hamilton. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I missaid that. They won their final 5 games. I thought I was looking at the playoff. They won their final 5 games, and then they go into the playoffs just red hot, and just had this magical run. It's kind of remarkable. It kind of reminds me of the New York Giants when they took down the New England Patriots. They were a wild card team, just caught lightning in a bottle, and then boom, got it done. One of the things that jumps out to me, so we're gonna this won't be an incredibly long episode because we're just talking futures, but we will do some team previews, and then obviously, when the season starts, we'll have an episode covering all the games each week and also a DFS roster. Because we love to play CFL DFS. I made some good money last year on that. But one of the things, I'm going to put the odds on the screen once again, folks. Hop on over to YouTube, type in CFL Gambling Podcast. But one of the things that jumps out to me of just being even the odds tell you that Montreal kind of caught lightning in a bottle last season, because they are plus 500 to win a Grey Cup, to win back-to-back championships. Now, I guess you could say, well, back-to-back championships is back-to-back championships. That's hard to do, but still, you would think there's only 9 teams in the CFL, folks. If you didn't know, Winnipeg, who obviously was there so close a year ago, they're plus 200. They're the odds-on favorite to win the Grey Cup. But after that, you got Toronto. We just talked about the Chad Kelly situation. He's suspended, I believe, 9 games that we know of already. They're plus 500. Montreal's plus 500. This is all according to DraftKings. Then the BC Lions, where they could be hosting the Grey Cup, plus 600. The Hamilton Ticats, J-Mark's Hamilton Ticats, plus 800. Then the Rough Riders of Saskatchewan, plus 900. And the Edmonton Eskimos and the Calgary Stampeders plus 1,600, and then the Ottawa Red Blacks at plus 2,200. What are is the most shocking one Montreal to you, or what do you make of all those odds when I just spew them out there?
Yeah, I mean, if you compare it to around where they're at, Toronto there at 5-1 as well, and we don't even know who their quarterback's going to be. So you're bringing back their starter and Cody Fajardo and some of their main pieces, and they have the same odds of a team that you don't know their quarterback. To me, that definitely kind of indicates that they got lucky. And obviously Winnipeg being the favorite, I think we can both agree that there's a reason they're a favorite.
Yeah, I mean they have a great home edge, and to me, let's go. Let's go by odds. Let's go. Actually, no, let's go alphabetically. Okay. The BC Lions, who last season, at one point, that's an interesting thing too. Is the CFL season's like a marathon. It's in case you guys, maybe you're just brand new tuning into, the CFL. There's an 18 game regular season, so it's a marathon. It starts, in June and it ends in November, which I like personally. I like it if it would start. I like it ending. I know this is a lot of CFL fans have complained that it goes too late in November. I like it actually ending. If it was up to me, it would do early December. But I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think some of the complaints I've heard is too many people shift their focus to the NFL, but the people that love the CFL don't.
Yeah,
so
who cares? Who cares about them? All right, we're trying to put a quality product out there, and I think, who cares? I mean, what are you doing? You can't. Everyone has more than one TV these days. All right, you can figure it out. All right, but yeah, I don't know. But so it's an 18-week season, so it is a marathon. BC, if you had asked me 9-10 weeks in, I was kind of buying stock. And I know Vernon Davis got injured, but not Vernon Davis, the Oregon quarterback, Vernon Adams. Yeah. Yep. Vernon Davis is the tight end. Vernon Adams, the Oregon QB. I know he got injured. The defense was kind of a mess. Early on, it was super legit. Towards the end of the year, it became a mess. They at one point they were by far the sacks leader in the CFL. I know that this offseason they went out and they brought in Dakota Prokop, who I am a big fan of. He was, New Jersey General. I didn't think they used him right in the USFL. I was actually surprised. I don't know. Do you remember him on the Generals?
Yeah, I do. And I agree with you. And this is a guy that in the CFL, most of his experience is, if you haven't watched CFL, if it's 3rd and 1, it's almost always a quarterback sneak, right? He was used primarily like that in the CFL, but he's got a good arm too. I mean, I wanted to see more of that. So, and they did not use that as well as they should have anyways in the USFL.
That was an interesting signing to me, because if Adams gets injured again, I mean, I think this guy's got more talent. It'd be interesting to see him as a full-time starter. Now, I'm not wishing injury on anybody, because Adams, Adams is a stud. I watched him in college at Eastern Washington and at Oregon, and he was a stud. But it was an interesting signing, and also you took him away from Winnipeg, who they'll be competing with there on the west side of things. But in the draft, they drafted offensive line the first 2 rounds, which tells me a lot. Hey, let's not get our quarterbacks injured. They also brought in Jake Dolgala from Saskatchewan. And, I know they like their running back spot with Taquan Mitchell and William Stanback at the running backs, but, what's it going to take for them to get over the hump here? I kind of, with them hosting, it's almost like the comparing it to the Battlehawks or something. I almost kind of like taking a sprinkle on the plus 600 with BC. What do you make of this team heading into the new year?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, they have the 8th and 9th running backs as far as yards from last year in William Stanback and Taquan Mizzell. Their wide receivers, Keon Hatcher, Alexander Hollins, Javon Cotoy, all very talented. I'm a little concerned they lost Matthew Betts, who was the sack leader last year. Little concerned with that. They're going to have some production they need to make up with the loss of him. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. This is a team that has built a winning culture. And so it's going to be hard to fade them at times. And especially with knowing at the end of this marathon, as you put it, is we could play at home. we could play the Grey Cup at home. I mean, that's a huge thing that is going to be in their mind of, let's just look forward to winning the next game because, hey, we could play at home. That's huge.
Yeah. And if you look at the stats, I have them up on the screen here. They were third in offense last year, right? And I think for some of it, they were like second, and then second in defense. Now, here's the thing about the defense. I tracked this all year long. I don't know if you guys caught me on VSiN. We would do a CFL segment every week last year. That defense was by far number one for pretty much like 70% of the season. Like they were holding teams to like a ridiculous number. They were like 50, 60 yards better than any other team. So when I'm talking shit about them, well, the defense fell way off. Well, they still charted at number 2. What I mean is the back half of the season, because they were so far at number 1, 10, 11 weeks in, and to end up number 2 and to end up, essentially kind of 30 yards behind the Winnipeg Blue Bombers is what I mean. If you go back and watch the season, that defense got really bad towards the end of the year. Now, blame some of it on injuries for whatever reason. I don't know. I think it's worth a sprinkle though.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, I really think it's worth a sprinkle. Moving to the next team, the Calgary Stampeders. I always pay attention to the draft. They traded up in the first round to get offensive lineman Christy Nakanu from Washington State. Go Cougs. And also got, so they had 2 first round picks, got a defensive back in Benjamin LaBrosse. I don't know. I wish I could tell you more about that. Normally, Washington State's had some decent, offensive linemen historically. So Jake Mayer back, former UC Davis Aggie. Go check out the Dan Hawkins interview I did if you're a UC Davis fan. Former head coach, just retired. He was just on the pod. But yeah, they got him. They brought in. They signed Matthew Schiltz, I think it is, the former Butler Bulldog. I don't know. Like Calgary is an interesting team to me. They went out and signed a bunch of different players. Actually, they brought in Trevon Tate on the offensive line from the Argos, linebacker Micah Tates from Saskatchewan, defensive back Demario Houston from Winnipeg. The problem is you look at what they did a year ago, and that offense was atrocious. Did you do enough on the offensive side of the ball to fix that? They were 8th out of 9 in the CFL a year ago. You look at what they did defensively. Hey, defense wasn't that bad. If you can just move the ball a little bit, you're talking about, maybe a team that could really surprise this year. I've been a fan of them, since Flutie days. They're fun. They're kind of like SMU of Canada. What's your thoughts? Plus 1,600. Is the offense going to be able to move the ball? Because I am still a skeptic.
Yeah, I am too. I do like the signing of Matt Schultz. I think he had some flashes when he got to play last year, when he was filling in for some injuries. But I just think there's too many holes. I'm not even sure who their running back is going to be. Their wide receivers, I mean, they have Jalen Philpott, Cameron Eccles-Looper, Malik Henry. Those aren't guys that are screaming that they're going to lead the league in receiving or be close to it. I just think they're going to continue to have trouble moving the ball down the field. The defense can be mediocre, but the offense is going to struggle, I think.
I would agree. This is one I don't look to play. You will not be hearing this on my huge tits parlay. So not going to play that one, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. You've been wrong before. Let's talk about the Edmonton Eskimos. They are plus 1,600. This was a rich program. Rich franchise. You can tell I do a lot of college football episodes. There's a rich franchise though, because historically they've been great, but then they did this cockamamie name change thing and they've been ass ever since. So no, if they want to win, they got to be the Eskimos, and they are the Eskimos in my mind. Please shut the fuck up, world. But this is a team. Call me crazy. I understand they were really historically horrible over some time, but I kind of like, maybe they could surprise. I feel like they have some guys that I trust. Chris Jones, I trust him. I think he's a winner. Brought in McLeod Bethel Thompson. We saw him, obviously in the CFL a few years ago, but he was in the USFL with the New Orleans Breakers last year. You're talking me in, or I'm talking myself into. And I kind of like what they did in the draft too. They know they needed to address defense. They went out and got a linebacker, and a DB. They got Javon Leake coming in from the Argos at the running back spot. I look. Their odds are fucking insane. Plus 1,600. Why not sprinkle $50 and see where that goes? Am I crazy?
You are crazy. This is the team that I can't get behind. They got a lot. Their defense played pretty decent down the stretch last year. I thought that their defense, they had some guys that really started to stand out, but whether it's McLeod Bethel Thompson or Trey Ford, I just don't think there's enough talent there. Curly Gittins, I feel like his talent is being wasted on this team. They got Geno Lewis, who I like, but they can't string together enough wins over the past handful of years. They've just not been able to do it. I don't see it turning around this year. I'm not going to spend my money on it, but
I'm just,
more power to you.
I'm hosting. I'm not actually putting my money there. I'm trying to sell the people on, maybe there's some Eskimo fans listening that say, hey, now look, they were 7th in offense out of 9 and 7th in defense. So at least they're consistent. They're consistent. Yeah, I'm not going to buy any stock. I don't think they're, out of the 3 we've mentioned right now, BC is the only one with any appeal to me.
Same.
But look, I want to talk about a few more, but before we do that, I want to tell you that the CFL Gambling Podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Yes, Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, the MLB. All right, you hear that, Blue Jay fans? And we need the Expos back too, right? Which this makes getting tickets even faster and easier over at Game Time. And prices on the Game Time app actually go down closer to a first pitch. So with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. So what the hell are you doing? And let me tell you about Game Time. They not only last minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, easy to find and buy MLB tickets for every kind of event in your area aside from MLB. So if you want to check out comedy, I was mentioning the great Norm Macdonald, may he rest in peace. Go check out some live stand-up comedy. All right. You got to go catch a play, right? We're talking about the Hamilton Ticats. Maybe you want to go see Hamilton. All right. You whatever the play, whatever the thing, they got you covered. If it's sports, if it's Jay-Z's in your town, it's Canada. I know Mocha only, you're doing a show, then boom, you pull out the app and boom, they got you figured. It's really fantastic. Lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection. They got it all. All right. So take the guesswork out of buying the tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that redeeming code CFBX for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, terms apply. Create that account, redeeming code CFBX for $20 off. Download Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, we are back on the CFL Gambling Podcast, and we're going team by team, just like the Avon lady. Knock on those doors. The Hamilton Ticats, your team, J Mark. And I'm not saying this because we're hosting this, and I want to be friendly with you. This is the one that I circled. This is the one that I circled. So I know you got, first off, you got Bo Levi Mitchell, who's the guy's done. I feel like I don't even remember how many MVPs. I feel like 2 or 3, right? 2-time Grey Cup MVP. There we go. I know reports are he's already dinged up or he's still injured from last year. Maybe that's true, but it's an 18-game season. He's going to get healthy at the right time. Just having him, I think, and they signed, they extended Taylor Powell. They drafted they went and got O-line in the first round, D-line in the second round. Line of scrimmage, always the most important thing to me. When it comes to football, it doesn't matter the country. Bo Levi Mitchell took a pay cut this season too. I like hearing that. He said, hey, I'm old. I'm a little old. I'm a little long in the tooth. Let's go get a chip. You look at their season last year, they were 4th in offense, and that's considering the injuries, right? Okay. Defense got to step it up a little bit. 6th in defense, gave up 59 yards a game, 359 yards a game, 358.6 to be exact. But I kind of like what they returned. Now, how do you feel about the injury?
Yeah, I mean, he is older. He does tend to get dinged up more recently. It seems like we saw it last year in his first year with Hamilton. He only played, I think, 6 games before he got injured. But like you said, he brings that veteran presence that he can even if he's not on the field, he can kind of be like a second coach because he's been around a lot. So I don't think I'm too concerned with the injury, especially like you just said, last year they were 4th in the league, even after the injury. This is a team that can still keep grinding it out.
Yeah, I think this is the one with the biggest upside. You go back to, let me go back to the, if you're watching on YouTube, go back to the odds plus 800. Okay. Hear me out here. They're on the east side of things. Toronto has a gigantic unknown quarterback position. Kelly's out now. I know Brian Scott was very good. Showed flashes of being really good in the USFL. So maybe they'll be okay. Maybe they'll be even better. Who knows? But Toronto lost some pieces in free agency, right? So a little bit unknown there. Montreal, it's hard to win 2 championships. I don't care what league it is. Even the odds are telling you. They kind of caught lightning in a bottle. Is it sustainable over 18 weeks in a postseason? I don't think so. I after watching last season, I was not trying to take it away from the Alouettes, but I kind of thought they just caught lightning in a bottle. I don't believe that they're, a great team. So right there, it tells you right there, well, can they play with them? Yeah, I think they can. I think they could beat those teams. That's why I think you got to buy some of this plus 800. I think this is my favorite play we've mentioned thus far.
Not to mention, in my opinion, they have the best dual threat running back in the league. I'm not saying he's the best running back, but he is the best dual threat in James Butler. He finished 3rd in rushing yards last year with 1,116, and he was 15th in the league in receptions, not just out of running backs, out of the whole league. This is a guy that can bail your quarterback out, and I think that's huge, especially if you are going through injuries with Bo Levi Mitchell and you maybe have to throw somebody else in there. They can dump it off, and Butler can make plays. I like Casey Sales on defense, their defensive lineman, Tim White, their receiver. I agree. I love this team. I think that they have that mentality where even if we seem behind, we're going to keep grinding it out and we're going to get wins and we're going to sneak up on you. That's what I've taken away from watching them the past three or 4 years, that they're going to, even if nobody really thinks they're going to be in it, they are in it. They're still playing games. So yeah, I'm on board there. This is one of my favorite underdog teams to bet.
Yeah, and to me, like, you gotta like it even more when I mentioned what I just mentioned, like the fact that of the unknown. Do you believe Montreal is like a contender to? I mean, I guess you got to say contender because they'll be, I think, a decent team, right?
Right.
But you can't tell me that you feel good about their chances to repeat. I would say. Right?
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. I think you see the other side of Cody Fajardo more this year. Like I said at the beginning, he's got 2 sides to him. Sometimes he's really good, sometimes he's not, and I think you're going to see more of that not, and he's going to struggle.
Yeah. I also like repping my boy Scott Milanovich, who grew up watching him in college at Maryland, head coach there now. I'm fucking old. But to me, that's another thing though, is the East is like, when you look at the West, like if you were going to take a future on Calgary or Edmonton or Saskatchewan, you got to hope that they make the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like, it's a harder path this year in the West. There's more unknown in the East than years prior, in my opinion. Anyway, let's shift down. I love that play. I think that's probably my favorite play on the board. I gave it away on VSiN last week. Let's jump down to the reigning champs, the Montreal Alouettes. Obviously, Cody Fajardo, 32 years old now. Both. How about? There's a lot of veteran quarterbacks in this league when I think about it. As someone that covers college football on the FCS and FBS front, it's been a while. I remember him at Nevada. It like when I think of Bo Levi Mitchell, Eastern Washington, Vernon Adams, Eastern Washington. I keep wanting to say Vernon Davis, Jeremiah Masoli. I feel like he was in college when I was in college. You got a shit ton of quarterbacks that are long in the tooth, man. Caleros too. Like that you add. You wonder if this could be a year where one of the younger quarterbacks could come out of it. But anyway, Montreal, they went offensive line in the first round. The kid out of Memphis in the AAC there. I just don't think this team was. I mean, even the stats back me up on this. Look at this. Top offenses a year ago. So they were sixth. They were the sixth best offense out of 9. So by definition, they were a bad offense, right? You look at defensively. Okay, that's their bread and butter. They were third, but normally that does not give you a path of a champion there. So I just don't think it's sustainable. And I'm not. You will not catch me grabbing a future on the Alouettes, despite the veteran quarterback play and returning some key pieces from last year's team.
Yeah, to me, what stands out is the pieces they aren't returning. Starting running back William Stanback, he's with BC now. He was their top running back. So I don't know if Jayshawn Antwi, Walter Fletcher, Sean Thomas Erlington, or Stevie Scott, who is a Michigan Panther in 2022. I don't know which one of them is going to kind of take over. And then their top wide receiver, as far as yards go, Austin Mack, is also gone. So they lost some pieces on offense that, as you showed in the stats there, was already kind of behind the league average. Defense can win championships, but I don't think their defense is good enough to be able to win the championship, especially if the offense can't get the ball moving.
100%. We're agreeing way too much. We did not talk about this pre-episode for the record. Let's jump over and talk about the Ottawa Red Blacks. I remember this guy, Drew Brown, at Hawaii. I think he was at Oklahoma State too, if memory serves me correct. Okay, so their odds are plus 2,200. I know they have the ageless wonder Jeremiah Masoli coming off his 30th injury. They went out in the first round, brought in Nick Mardner, who I'm familiar with from the Auburn Tigers. Also got a guy I'm familiar with from San Diego State on the defensive line in the second round, who I do think they did well in the draft. However, there's just no way I'm going to touch this. I mean, the odds, I guess, are so good that it's maybe just say fuck it. But like I just said, I don't think it's a smart play. Like, I don't think they're that good. What do you make of this team?
Yeah, if you're feeling it any, this is like a throw a quarter or half unit just because the payout is good. But
and they're in the East. I would say payout and the fact they're in the East, which has the most unknowns compared to the West.
Yeah. I can't imagine Mazzoli's going to get another start, is he? I mean, he's just there to be kind of a veteran presence. They've been through that experiment of bringing him in. I was excited when they first brought him in. Just he couldn't stay healthy. I did think Dustin Crum looked decent last year, and I love
Dustin Crum.
Yeah, I think he looked good last year, and I think Drew Brown is a solid backup to have if he will be the backup to Crum. Love their wide receiver Dominic Rhymes. I think that guy can dominate at this level. I just don't know if they have enough pieces to stay relevant and stay in the race. But like you said, it's a little bit more of an unknown conference there. So, maybe you do like a half a unit because it is a good payout. So maybe they catch lightning in a bottle this year.
Who do you think starts at quarterback for them?
I think it's Crum. I mean, after what he did last year,
I
how do you
loved
take
it
from him?
But I almost think it's going to be Brown though. I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to watch because Crum, to me, I loved him. If you follow college football like we do in the MAC, on those Tuesday nights, those wacky MAC games, loved him with Sean Lewis there. But I don't know. I think that's going to be an interesting one because to me, he started out red hot, but down the stretch, he struggled a little bit.
Yeah, he did. I think maybe as teams got more tape on him, that's a good point. And to your point, Drew Brown coming from Winnipeg, I mean, those guys at Winnipeg are coached up a lot. So, maybe he steps into Ottawa and just completely takes over that job. I could see that.
I don't know. I just feel like, but I guess with those odds, it's like I said, just being a part of the of the East, I do think there's a little bit of value in taking a shot on Bob Dice's squad. All right, let's move along to the next team, and that is the Saskatchewan Roughriders. This is an interesting team to me. Like I said, I kind of wish they were in the East because I do think there's some promise. I know they lost Pete Robinson on the defensive line, who was a stud for them, but they got AJ Alouette from I remember him in the MAC too, from Ohio. He the Argos running back, ran over 1,000 yards last year, 8 touchdowns. And you mix him with Harris at the quarterback spot, who's once again, not to beat a dead horse, but another, I feel like he's got to be 40 fucking years old. They got, I know they have Mason Fine also too, which I remember from North Texas. Maybe he could turn into something, but what do you make of Saskatchewan? Cause to me, like, if I had to like talk about a different team that like, okay, I kind of feel like it's going to go chalk in the West. I think it's going to be, Winnipeg and BC.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had to sell me on a team to surprise in the West, and I guess the odds kind of reflect it too, it would be Saskatchewan. What do you make of them?
Can't sell me on it. I'm curious to see if Trevor Harris gets a starting job, if they go with Mason Fine, who got some starts last year. They also have your favorite guys, Shea Patterson and Jack Cohn.
Oh boy, I forgot they got Cone.
Yeah, your favorite lawn chair guys,
yeah. Jack Cone, Shea Patterson, just loading up on the old USFL QBs,
right? I do like AJ Alouette a lot. He was 4th in rushing yards last year. They have the 7th and 8th wide receivers as far as receiving yards from last year, Sean Bain and Samuel Emelis, but I think they have too many question marks on defense. This is a team where, the offense may be able to put it together and put up some yards, but I don't know if the defense can stop anybody.
That's what was a little bit surprising. Like, they went O-line in the first round of the draft, brought in a kid from BC, and they lost Robinson on the D line. Now I know they brought in a kid, Malik Carney from Hamilton, but they were dead last in the CFL in defense a year ago. Gave up basically 400 yards a game, 383 yards a game. That ain't going to get you a lot of wins. But I think if I had to like power rank, if you had to power rank the West, where would you put them?
It's a good question.
Because I mean, I'm optimistic about the Eskimos, but I think the Eskimos are going to be better this year. I really do, but I still think the Rough Riders, you'd have to power rank them coming into the season at 3rd.
Yeah, maybe 4th.
Yeah, with that shit defense.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting to watch. Next, let's go to the Toronto Argonauts. Yes, the Argos. John Candy, great outdoors. He once owned the Argonauts, and we've had Joe Theismann on our show a bunch of times. Former Toronto Argo himself. They have from Doug Flutie to, they just have a rich history from Doug Flutie to Theismann to. They had Ricky Williams for a little bit when he goes smoking that weed. And the NFL suspended him. He's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'll go play in Toronto. And Rocket Ishmael, obviously. And Chad Kelly and Brad Scott now. But they're an interesting play because they kind of got hit in free agency, I thought. But I still think they have the best offensive line in the league, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, how does that Chad Kelly situation go from financials? Because he's like I think he's the highest or the second highest paid player in the league. Does that free up cap room for them?
It should. I just read an article that he thought he was going to be able to participate in training camp at least before serving a suspension, and they removed him from training camp. It was kind of a big scene of like, no, dude, you're not going to be here, which doesn't surprise me. I mean, Canada takes that kind of stuff very seriously. The headlines I'm reading right now say Cameron Dukes has the first start at winning the starting job. So I'll have to reach out to my boy Brian Scott and see how he's feeling. But yeah, the interesting thing to me with the Kelly suspension is everything I read says it's at least 9 games. He has to complete some classes and everything and go to meetings before they decide he can come back. And that's what I kind of mean by Canada takes that a lot more serious. It's not like just, hey, here's your slap on the wrist, you're back now. He's going to have to put in some work if he wants to see the field again.
Yeah. Well, trust me, I know that when I flew up to Canada and I toured the great country that is Canada, they come at you hard. What's this? I got a drunken public. That thing. I mean, that was back when I was, in college. But I'm saying like, they actually like interrogated me on this. I'm like, what the fuck you guys talking about? You ever been 18? I got drunk. I was standing outside, having drinks in a parking lot, and that happened. All right. Do you want the name of the officer? Because I don't know it. But that they're legit. They give you shit coming in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting. How do you like it from a future standpoint, though? Because this is a true unknown to me. They added another wideout in the first round. They went out and got Kevin Lytle. You mix him with Brissett and Coxie and the ageless wonder Davaris Daniels and Tommy Field. They got wideouts. They got O-line. The offense could still be pretty fire.
Yeah, and they added Rasheed Bailey from Winnipeg, who I think is kind of an underrated wide receiver. They got Richie Sindani, who has some nice flashes. They did lose AJ Alouette. They bring in Kadeem Carey, former Chicago Bear. Always, as soon as I got back into the CFL, that name popped up. I was like, holy shit, I wondered where that guy went. But yeah, I think that they on offense are going to be just fine. Dinwiddie, their coach, Ryan Dinwiddie, I think he's a really good coach. I think he can coach these guys very well, that it may not matter who is quarterbacking the job. I think they can get it done.
Not to plug that same episode that I just did on the college football experience, go check out the Dan Hawkins interview I did. Legendary coach, the guy who kind of started the magic at Boise State. They haven't had a losing season since the 90s. Ryan Dinwiddie played quarterback for him. And CFL fans might know Dan Hawkins. He coached for the Alouettes for a little bit there. But yeah, go check out that episode. And yeah, he is a very good coach. Now, I think one of the bigger questions is I think the offense will be fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's defense. They were fifth. And I wonder if they're actually better this year or worse. I kind of think they could be worse this year.
Yeah. I felt like they picked it up towards the end of the year. They seemed like a dominant defense, but I'm going to butcher some names here, but they got Falarin Ormalade, who had 10 sacks on the defensive line last year. Wynton McManus flies all over the field with 80 tackles. I think they'll be all right. I like they've promoted their defensive backs coach and their linebacker coach to be co-defensive coordinators. That's Kevin Iban and William Fields. I think those guys, I mean, they've both been in this league, whether it be playing and coaching for a while. I think they're going to be all right. I think under Dinwiddie that they're going to be able to coach this team up no matter who's playing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be fast. I think they're the most interesting team in the whole league.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they could be, they could win the Grey Cup potentially, or they could not make the playoffs. They're like the true team that I have no read on, especially with the situation with Kelly. So shout out to Dara Gill in the chat. First time watching live, usually listen to the podcast the next morning. Big fan of SGPN and the database. Keep it up. There we go. Add J Mark to that. Get on over there. Give J Mark. Check out the Old Fashioned Football podcast. Appreciate you, Dara. Yeah, let's jump on over to the next team, and that is the pride and joy, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Now, I alluded to the fact that Dakota Prokop gone, but they have Zach Caleros, who's I think he might be the highest paid quarterback in the league, but he's like 35 too, or 36 or something. So you got to wonder, I guess, at what point do they fall off? Because it's just that's the human body. It's gonna happen. They still have what was the backup's name? Streveler, I think it is.
Chris, right? Chris Streveler.
Yeah, yep. He's solid, man. He's pretty good. Now they had no first round draft picks. In the second round, they went and got a wideout out of UConn. They had 2 second round draft picks and a running back from Delaware State, Michael Chris Ike, I believe. I mean, their home edge is huge. They're like this team. I keep wanting to say program. It just stays rolling to me. So I am not at all really concerned. I think Mike O'Shea is doing a great job, and I think he'll be fine. And until I see otherwise, like I still think that they got the odds right as far as like it's the hardest place to win, in my opinion, going into Winnipeg and getting a dub. And then I think they're the best team in the West, so they at least, if I had to bet, they'd be in the Grey Cup. Now maybe BC can get there. Injuries always play such a huge role, so we'll have you covered. That's why you listen week by week. But is there any reason for you to doubt that the Blue Bombers will be there at the end of the day?
Not at all. This is my biggest future bet that I'm placing. I wish it was a little longer than 2-1 odds, obviously, but it's 2-1 for a reason. I mean, Zach Claros, even though his age, he is the best quarterback in the league right now, in my opinion. Brady Oliveira led in rushing yards and touchdowns, and their wide receiver room is just stacked. Dalton Schoen, Drew Wolotarski, Kenny Lawler, Nick Dembski, Isaiah Coulter they added. And then the defense is solid too. They got guys on like defensive end, Willie Jefferson, who had 11 sacks. I mean, they're solid all across the board. They're always in every single game. So yeah, it's 2-1 for a reason, but for me, it's the biggest futures bet I'm placing.
No, I'm with you. I think you have to take this. You look at, and the numbers last year, I know they didn't win the Grey Cup somehow. Look at those offensive numbers. If you're not watching on YouTube, they are, 40 yards better than the next offense per game, the average in yardage. I mean, truly remarkable that they didn't win it last year. And then you look at the defensive side, and they're 30 yards better than the second best defense. It's remarkable that they didn't win the Grey Cup. So you got to wonder, chip on their shoulder, do they get it done? And you got to also wonder, how many more years do you have, Caleros? You got to get it done here. This is like your window is closing. So to me, I know you can't really parlay futures because only one team wins, but actually, let me see. Do they have more out there than the future? Do they have division? No, they don't have division over here. Do you have you seen division at all?
I have not. No.
Well, then I guess my my Pam Anderson huge tits parlay, it's gonna have to wait a couple weeks. But I can tell you this. I will place 3 wagers on futures. Winnipeg is 1. BC is 2. Hamilton is 3. And if I had to talk myself into a 4th, it would be Ottawa of all teams. But I think I'm going those 3, and I think I'm staying into those 3. And I'll be honest, I think my lightest wager will be on BC. My biggest wagers are on Winnipeg and Hamilton. How about for you?
I like it. Biggest wagers on Winnipeg and BC. Lightest is Toronto and Hamilton. Maybe it's a little bit of bias. Again, I have a signed Brian Scott jersey that says J. Mark and Murr, thanks for the support. So maybe I'm a little biased towards Toronto, but I do think they're a very well coached team, and I think they got a lot of pieces even with the suspension. So those are the 4 teams I'm looking at.
There we go. Folks, I see 220 people watching this live. Hit that like and subscribe button because we're here for good. All right? We're not getting fucking canceled. All right? I don't think. We'll see how many times I can say Eskimos before they cancel me.
Or Pamela Anderson's huge tits parlay.
Yeah. But listeners are like, she's like 70, dude. What are you talking about? Well, that's all I got. All right? Unless you could sell me on someone else that's discovered at a CFL game, which there probably is, probably like a cheerleader. I don't know. But either way, the CFL has given us a lot of gems over the years. And I guess, if I talked to a 13-year-old me, that was a hell of a gem the CFL gave us. But the huge tits parlay, it's here to stay, damn it. All right. Give J-Mark a follow on Twitter at JMarkFootball. The guy lives, breathes football. He's out there in Iowa. Guys work at a fucking tractor. I know Canadians know about tractors. All right. I had the opportunity. I went across Canada. I went to like 20 cities in Canada in like 25 nights. So I got a good grasp of Canada. You know, besides, I think a lot of people say, "Hey, you've been to Canada? You know, where'd you go? Toronto or Vancouver or something," which are great cities. But I went all across I know they know how to work a fucking. What was your tractor? It's a no turn tractor.
Zero turn.
Zero turn. All right. They know how to work that shit up there. Folks, I'm on Twitter at TheColbyD. Give me a follow. We also host, me and J Mark also host the UFL gambling podcast. He does the old fashioned football podcast as well. I do the Stadium Heads podcast. If you love stadiums, we're going to talk CFL stadiums at some point, but go check out the Stadium Heads podcast. Also the college football experience and the FCS college football experience. We do it all. Also the Sports Gambling podcast. Check out them live every Friday night on VSiN, because we're going to be talking a lot of CFL stuff as the season heats up. And shout out to Dean. He lives in Seattle and he says, "I know zero turn." Okay. Well, maybe it's just me. I've lived in an apartment for, I live in LA, and for 21 years, I've lived, I think maybe 21 years in LA, you add that to the mix. So I think like I'm looking at 25 years of no grass. Unfortunately, I want to be able to say, so that tells you that my career hasn't been working out very well, because I want grass. Damn it. All right. I want grass. I want one of those zero turns or no turns. All right. And anyway, though, we're going to make a bunch of money on these CFL futures. And I can't wait, because once the season starts, and by the way, we're going to do some team previews. I know we kind of highlighted some here. We'll do some team previews. If I can find win totals, I'm kind of waiting to see if I can get win totals before we do team previews, because if not, it's just like me scattering, just rambling with the roster. So keep an eye on that. If anyone does, please contact. If you see win totals over under, let me know, because we would love to go over those. But certainly when the season kicks, we'll be here talking every game, DFS, all that good stuff. So subscribe to the CFL Gambling Podcast. We're gonna have some great guests as the season goes along as well. All right, folks. Until next time, this is the CFL Gambling Podcast. You better start thinking about yours. And we out of here.